All right, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. I'm Colin Moore from the University of Hawaii, and it is great to be here at this conference. And appropriately enough, after we just had lunch, we are here to talk about agriculture, an industry that, although it only represents a small percent of the state's economic output, has a great deal of political, historical, and cultural importance. And so that's what we're going to focus on for the next 90 minutes. And to start us off, I am very happy to welcome Matthew Loke, who is an administrator and the lead economist with the Hawaii Department of Agriculture. Please welcome Matthew.
Yeah. They led. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Colin, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here today to be talking to you on agriculture. It's interesting to note that 30 years ago, September 11th, we had the so-called Iniki hit Hawaii. A lot of times, agriculture is so much dependent on what's going on in nature. Every time we have storms, we have floods, we have hurricanes, it really impacts the industry. And it is one of the industries that has a lot of risk. With that said, I will move on to our presentation, start off with trends. Oops. Okay, there we go. First slide is on farm revenues and production expenses for the state of Hawaii. This is from the year 2000 to 2020. If you look at farm revenues, it has been flat from 2000 to about 2007, accelerating thereafter to a peak of 2012, and then declining steadily till about 2019, and then COVID hit in 2020. The good news is that for 2021, we will have an uptick. When it comes to production expenses, you can see that farm production expenses has also been growing steadily up to 2012, and this is below the so-called value of sales and government payments. And then it overtook those payments in 2013, and it continued till 2017. And we recovered slightly, and then we were back in deficit again. Zooming in. Sorry, change of site. Okay, zooming in, here we have farm sales and government payments. As you can see, the brown area represents farm sales and government payments. And then the green area is the proportion of direct government payments. Okay, from the year 2000 to 2019, direct government payments were running at about 11 million a year, or 2.4% of our total farm revenues. In 2020, with the onset of COVID, it jumped to $83 million, or 13.4% of the total. Now, beyond that, in 2021, I don't have the numbers or the chart here. The amount of direct payments has gone down, and the farm sales has gone up. So in total, the percentage of direct government payments is slightly below 6%. Now, this trend of going up to 2012 and then declining, a lot of people ask me, so what's happening here? And for a long time, since 2000, the seed crop industry has been increasing over time. That peaked in 2011. And beyond that, it fell. Okay, so there's a correlation between the decline in the seed crop industry in Hawaii and total farm payments. This does not mean that there are other sectors of the ag economy that hasn't been growing. In fact, there are two areas that were very positive. One was aquaculture. It grew by about 30 million in 2010 to about 80 million today. The second one is fresh vegetables. So veggies went up from about 30 million in 2010 to about 90 million today. So those are positive growth for ag. Here in this slide, we're showing the count of hired workers and gross wage rates. As you can see, the number of farm workers has been declining since 2000 to 2020. Okay, on the other hand, gross wage has been increasing over time at a rate that's much higher than the minimum wage rate. Okay, I must say that agriculture is a business, and in many cases, it is a family business. So oftentimes, there are a lot of free employees. You know, we are a member of a family, and when it's needed, all hands are on deck. Yeah, people who grew up in farms will know that children oftentimes have to work on the farm. This next slide here shows us the food supply chain in Hawaii. It's not too different from other places, but I just want to emphasize that we will start off at farm gate production, which is the second label on the left. And it's all about farm gate production. Farm gate production is the value of production that is sold leaving the farm, hence farm gate. Okay, now this is a term that you don't hear too often in other industries. You may hear about factory gate if you look at the transportation literature, but you will never hear something like hotel gate, right? And I'm going to stop there because it sounds like it's going to a political scandal. So farm gate value there, and then we have supply inputs, and then moving on, we have transport, storage, and inventory. And at the upper end, we have produce imported into the state. Okay, and then moving on, we have things like graders and aggregators, processors, and packages. And under aggregators, I have a /FB. FB stands for food hubs. Food hubs is a fairly new phenomenon in Hawaii. It took off during the COVID event. because small farms were not able to sell their products to their usual markets, and the food hubs came in, bought the produce, aggregated stuff, and sell to bigger clients. So we have at least 14 food hubs now in the state, and still growing. So beyond that, we'll move forward to the wholesalers and manufacturers, food service, and then the distributors, retailers, restaurants, and then to consumers, and some for exports. So you can see that beyond farm gate, everything else is value added. This next slide shows us the value of agriculture and allied industries, pretty much at a glance. I guess Dr. Loke and I used to work on this, but this latest version comes courtesy of DBED. This is Eugene's shop. We looked at NAICS codes from 111 to 115, and you can see that that portion of agriculture is a small percentage, or much small percentage compared to food processing. Food processing is 64.3%, so the remaining is attributed to agriculture. So if we count it this way, the value of agriculture is about $2.4 billion annually, as opposed to farm gate, which is at about $600 million annually. Okay, why the difference? Well, like, let me ask you, when you hear the word coffee, what do you think? Are you thinking about a cup of black coffee, cappuccino, espresso, or a latte? Probably so, right? But in agriculture like me, when you talk about coffee, I'm thinking coffee cherry. So coffee cherry is worth about close to 60 million now in the state of Hawaii. Okay, and the price of coffee cherry is $2 a pound. When that is processed into parchment coffee, that's about $13 a pound, and then to green coffee, which is $20 a pound. The highest value roasted coffee that I'm aware of in Hawaii is about $300 a pound. So that $300 a pound does not accrue back to farm gate, but it's in value added. This next slide shows us another study done at the national level. It's an alternate impact study, and it has been endorsed by some of the major agriculture and food players in the US. Among them, the American Farm Bureau Federation, the National Grocers Council, and also the NRA, not the National Rifle Association, but the National Restaurant Association. Okay, now with this methodology, they come up with an estimate of $9.3 billion. That's the economic impact on Hawaii, sourcing from agriculture. So why this big number? Eugene was giving us 2.4 billion, and this one is 9.3 billion. Well, it's how we count, right? These guys they are including not only farm gate, not only food processing, but they're including other varieties like wholesaling, warehousing, transportation. So you add all of that together, The direct impact is 9.3 billion a year. The job count is also pretty high, pretty significant. It's over 87,000 jobs. Tax impact close to $2 billion. Now, I guess we are not going to go that far yet because we will stick with our NAICS code. This is a methodology that's quite similar to tourism. They group different individual industry that caters to tourism. The next slide is a survey that we conducted last year. It's called the Hawaii Commercial Agriculture Expansion Survey. And here we surveyed about 1,000 commercial producers throughout the state. This was a cooperative venture between the HDUA and USDA NAS. And in this survey, we found that a majority or close to 60% of our producers thinks that the high cost of production is a major barrier to their business. Most of the farms are actually on the Big Island. You can see that it's about 61%. And close to 55% of them indicated that production cost was a major factor to their expansion. It's even higher on Oahu, 68%. Next slide. Here, we're trying to show you the cost of production by categories. You can see that at the top, the red portion, it is labor costs. The next one is capital depreciation, which I thought was interesting. So that may mean that some of the producers are actually writing things off, or the other thing is that equipment in the ag sector is getting old, needs to be replaced. The other factors involve things like fertilizer, lime and soil conditioners. I guess I jumped two parts, repair, maintenance, and feed. I guess since this was stopped in 2020, energy cost wasn't as important, but it should be a lot more important in the next year, this year and next year. Cost of production lead items statewide. As I mentioned earlier, labor, both hired and contracted workers, capital consumption, repair and maintenance, energy, fuel, oil, and electricity. Here is grouped: feed, fertilizer, lime, and soil conditioner. At the county level, again, labor is the headliner. It's a major issue on all the counties. Then it's repair and maintenance. Okay, for Maui County, it was utility. Utility cost was a major cost of hindrance to them. And then for the Big Island, it was feed, right? I guess we can understand that because the Big Island has a lot more ranchers, so they need more feed for cattle and the smaller animals, pigs, sheep, goats. Okay, more on the so-called ag expansion survey, decision factors to expand agricultural production. And these are some of the leading reasons we found out to increase profits was cited by almost 80%. Food self-sufficiency and local employment was next, and then to reduce production and transportation costs. I guess if you try to sell your products within your own county, you save on shipping costs. And lastly, they wanted to increase market share. Barriers to expand agricultural production. Again, it comes out again and again. Insufficient access to labor. Then shipping and transportation, insufficient access to capital. You had a banker this morning talk about how important capital is to business. In fact, most of the commercial banks don't lend directly to farmers and ranchers today. In Hawaii, most of the ag loans is done by the Hawaii Department of Agriculture and USDA Farm Service Agency. Interest rate pretty low, still at 3%. Then there's not enough cash flow. And lastly, uncertainty due to COVID-19. It's kind of interesting too that government regulation in this survey ranked 10th. I guess people were worried about COVID-19, they weren't too worried about government regulation. We also asked them the technology that's needed to increase productivity. And this is what they have to say: more advanced farm equipment. So they want to be more capital intensive. They want more modern greenhouses in CEA, which means controlled environment agriculture. I guess we have one in Kaka'ako. It's fully self-contained. It's energy intensive, but it is efficient and has very low food waste. They also cite farm automation and robotics, and they wanted more livestock technology. This next slide is to address how competitive Hawaii is with respect to certain states on the mainland. So what we have done here is to look at different states of similar size in agricultural acreage. And so from ranking from 42nd to 46, we have the state of Vermont, and we have Hawaii, we have Alaska, then we have New Jersey and Delaware. Okay, you can see that the state of Vermont has about 6,800 farms. Hawaii has 7,300. Alaska has about 1,050. New Jersey has about 9,900, and the state of Delaware has about 2,300. Looking at revenues and expenses at different years for the different states. And you can see that Alaska has been running deficits in various years. For the state of Hawaii, we ran a deficit in 2014, but we kind of recovered in 2016 or 2017. Vermont has got a healthy surplus, so they're doing well. But by far, the stellar states were New Jersey and Delaware. Delaware has half of the acreage that Hawaii has. Less farms or fewer farms, but a lot more production. Yeah, Delaware is famous for what? Broilers. They produce broilers as the #1 egg product. For New Jersey, the #1 product is floriculture. They produce about $300 million annually in floriculture. Hawaii only produces about 18 million. So I think we have a long ways to go. Besides floriculture, New Jersey produces a lot of blueberries and bell peppers. We can produce blueberries, but the birds like it too. Bell pepper, I think we have a shot. We can produce more bell peppers over time. The importance of Hawaii agriculture. I guess agriculture deals with traded goods. So there are multiple revenue streams. We have local sales, we have value-added products. So that's value-added sales. We have exports, and we have dedicated government subsidies. The US Farm Bill is coming up again next year. Agriculture is diversified. We have a different mix of food crops, livestock, ornamentals, seeds, queen bees, and broodstock. Some of you probably know that our seed industry has got a blueprint on seeds all over the world. Same thing with queen bees. It's very important for pollination on the mainland. It is a source of local food, fresh, sustainable, and longer shelf life. Local food is harvested at peak ripening, so it increases the aroma, the flavor, and nutrition. And finally, agriculture maintains green spaces. It mitigates the flow of invasive species and preserve the cultural experiences we all accept. Next slide is on the leading food groups and growth potential. You can see that in terms of Hawaii food crops, ranking first in the United States, we have macadamia nuts, we have coffee, we have pineapple, we have papaya, we have banana, we have taro, and luau leaf. Some of you may think that we don't produce pineapple anymore. That's not right. If you were to buy a fresh pineapple in the retail store, I bet you that 99.5% of the time, it is a pineapple that is locally produced. Same goes for papayas. We do not import papayas from elsewhere. The crops would have strong growth potential. On the right side is basil, sweet potatoes, breadfruit, and lime. Basil is really interesting. 99.2% of basil produced in Hawaii is exported. This activity takes place at the airport every single day. It's flown out because it is light, and we are probably the best producer of basil in the US and Canada. I think we have the potential to double it from 30 million to 60 million over the next few years. And that sums it up. Thank you for your attention.